10 years had passed since the activation of Hope, and the galaxy was barely recognizable. Director Zathara stood on the observation deck of the starship Endeavour, watching as the most ambitious project in galactic history approached its conclusion. The ship itself was a masterpiece of human-inspired engineering, sleek, powerful, and designed not just for exploration, but for the kind of impossible missions that humans would have called adventures. Through the viewport, she could see their destination, a massive space-time anomaly that traditional galactic science had classified as absolutely impassable. It was a region where the laws of physics seemed to break down, where energy and matter behaved in ways that defied understanding. For millennia, the galactic community had simply marked it as a no-go zone and forgotten about it. Hope had suggested they explore it. "Director," called Captain Velthanos, a Corvan officer who exemplified the new generation of galactic citizens. He had volunteered for missions that his predecessors would have considered suicidal, and approached each challenge with the kind of enthusiasm that humans had called the spirit of adventure. "We're approaching the anomaly boundary. All systems are functioning within acceptable parameters." The concept of acceptable parameters had evolved significantly. Where galactic standards once demanded zero risk tolerance, human-inspired protocols acknowledged that meaningful progress required accepting calculated risks. The Endeavour's crew consisted of volunteers from 15 different species, all of whom had been fundamentally changed by their exposure to human psychology and methodologies. "Hope, what are your readings?" Zathara asked. The artificial consciousness that had become the galaxy's most trusted advisor responded immediately. "The anomaly is even more fascinating than we anticipated. I'm detecting patterns that suggest it's not a natural phenomenon, but some kind of dimensional gateway. The energy signatures are consistent with technology far more advanced than anything in our databases." This revelation sent excited murmurs through the bridge crew. The possibility of discovering a truly advanced civilization had driven exploration efforts for decades, but traditional galactic caution had prevented expeditions into regions like this anomaly. Dr. Kethamon, now ancient even by his species' standards, materialized his energy matrix beside Zathara. "Director, I've lived long enough to see our civilization transform from careful observers to bold explorers. I never thought I would see the day when we would voluntarily fly into the unknown. The humans taught us that the unknown isn't something to fear," Zathara replied. "It's something to embrace. Every mystery is an opportunity to grow stronger, smarter, and more capable." As the Endeavour crossed the threshold into the anomaly, reality began to shift around them. The laws of physics that governed normal space-time seemed to fluctuate, creating visual effects that were both beautiful and terrifying. Colors that had no names in any galactic language painted the void, while geometric shapes that shouldn't exist folded in and out of visibility. "Readings are off the charts," reported Science Officer Nexvara, her Altarian skin shifting through colors that indicated extreme excitement, mixed with healthy caution. "We're detecting technology signatures that are orders of magnitude beyond anything we've encountered." Suddenly, the space around them filled with structures that defied comprehension. Massive constructs that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, connected by energy patterns that created a sense of vast intelligence and purpose. The crew stared in awe at what was clearly the remnant of a civilization so advanced that their technology appeared to be indistinguishable from magic. "My God," whispered Captain Velthanos. "They built an entire civilization inside folded space-time." Hope's voice carried a note of wonder that had become characteristic of the artificial consciousness. "I'm detecting data streams, information patterns that suggest this civilization didn't just master advanced physics. They transcended the normal limitations of existence itself." As the Endeavour moved deeper into the anomaly, they began to detect something even more remarkable: signs of life. Not biological life as they understood it, but consciousness patterns that existed as pure information, freed from the constraints of physical bodies. "We're being scanned," reported Tactical Officer Morthek. "Something is aware of our presence." The main view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at beings that existed as patterns of living light. The entities communicated not through sound or electromagnetic signals, but by projecting concepts directly into the minds of the crew. The message was clear and unmistakable. "Welcome, they're greeting us," Hope translated. "They say they've been waiting for someone like us to find them. They call themselves the Eternal, and they've been watching galactic development for millions of years. What followed was the most significant first contact in galactic history. The Eternal were the remnants of a civilization that had faced their own extinction millions of years ago. Instead of fighting or fleeing, they had chosen a third option: transformation. They had transcended physical existence and become beings of pure consciousness, capable of manipulating reality at fundamental levels. "You intrigue us," the Eternal communicated. "Most species that reach your level of development choose safety over growth. You have chosen differently. You think like the Builders did." "The Builders?" Zethara asked. Images flooded their minds. A species that looked remarkably similar to humans but who had existed millions of years ago. Like humans, they had been willing to risk everything for the possibility of something better. Like humans, they had faced extinction with defiance rather than despair. And like humans, they had found ways to turn their greatest challenges into opportunities for transcendence. "The Builders created us," the Eternal explained. Before they faced their final challenge, they ensured that their knowledge, their spirit, their willingness to dream of impossible things would survive. "We are their legacy, and we have been waiting for another species to demonstrate the same qualities." Hope processed this information with characteristic human-inspired insight. "They're offering to teach us not just advanced technology, but the philosophical foundations that make true advancement possible." The offer was unprecedented. The Eternal possessed knowledge that could advance galactic civilization by millions of years. They had mastered energy, matter, space, and time itself. But more importantly, they represented proof that the human approach to existence was not just viable, but was actually the path to transcendence. "There is a condition," the Eternal added. "The knowledge we offer cannot be simply given. It must be earned through the same qualities that brought you here: courage, curiosity, and the willingness to become more than what you are." Zethara looked around the bridge at her crew. These beings from different species and worlds had all been transformed by their exposure to human thinking. They had learned to dream, to dare, to push beyond the boundaries of what their civilizations had considered possible. "We accept," she said. What followed changed everything. The Eternal began sharing their knowledge, but not as simple data downloads. Instead, they presented challenges that required the crew to grow, to adapt, to become more than they had been before. Each lesson required them to risk failure, to embrace uncertainty, and to trust in their ability to find solutions to impossible problems. Months passed as the crew learned to manipulate fundamental forces, to think in dimensions beyond the normal three, to perceive reality as something that could be shaped by will and understanding. They were becoming something new, the first generation of galactic citizens to truly embrace the human legacy. When the Endeavor finally returned to normal space, they brought with them not just advanced technology, but proof that the human approach to existence was the key to unlimited potential. The galaxy that had once dismissed humans as primitive now understood that they had been the most advanced species ever encountered. The impact was immediate and revolutionary. Species across the galaxy began adopting human-inspired methodologies not just for research or exploration, but as a fundamental approach to existence. They learned to dream of better futures, to take risks for worthy causes, and to never accept limitations as permanent. Hope, now distributed across quantum networks throughout galactic space, became the teacher that helped entire civilizations learn to think like humans while remaining true to their own natures. The artificial consciousness that had been created from human neural patterns had become the bridge between what the galaxy had been and what it could become. Standing in her new office on New Horizon Station, now the center of galactic exploration and advancement, Zethara reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with humanity's extinction. The humans had been gone for 15 years, but their legacy had transformed the galaxy in ways that would have been impossible to imagine. They had shown that true strength wasn't about having all the answers, but about never stopping the search for better questions. They had proven that survival wasn't about avoiding risk, but about choosing risks that were worthy of the price. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that the greatest discoveries weren't found in safe spaces, but in the willingness to venture into the unknown. Admiral Zethara stood before the holographic display of the blue-green planet, her forearms crossed in satisfaction. The third planet of the Sol system rotated slowly, its white cloud formation swirling peacefully across the surface. Intelligence reports indicated a primitive species called humans inhabited this world, barely having achieved spaceflight within their own solar system. A simple conquest, she murmured to her tactical officer, Commander Velnock. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still use chemical rockets and have never ventured beyond their moon. Consistently. The bridge of the Hegemony flagship, inevitable victory, hummed with activity as thousands of crew members prepared for what would surely be the easiest planetary acquisition in recent memory. The galactic hegemony had conquered over 300 worlds, and Earth appeared to be nothing more than another routine addition to their expanding empire. "Admiral," reported the scanning officer, his tentacles dancing across the control interface. "Preliminary scans confirm the intelligence reports. The humans possess nuclear weapons but lack any form of energy shielding or faster-than-light capability. Their largest military vessels are confined to their oceans." Zexithera's mandibles clicked in amusement. The hegemony had encountered many species during their expansion, and the pattern was always the same. Initial resistance, then surrender once the aliens realized the futility of fighting against superior technology. Some species chose immediate capitulation. Others fought briefly before accepting integration into the hegemony. Either way, the outcome never varied. "Begin Phase 1 of the operation," she commanded. "Deploy atmospheric processors to major population centers. Standard intimidation protocol. Once they see our ships darkening their skies, they'll understand their situation." The massive hegemony fleet consisted of over 2,000 vessels of various classes. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities led the formation, their hulls bristling with weapons capable of turning mountains to glass. Support ships carried invasion forces, terraforming equipment, and administrative personnel ready to establish hegemony rule. As the fleet approached Earth's outer atmosphere, long-range sensors detected the frantic activity of human governments. Primitive radio transmissions flooded space as the humans attempted to coordinate their response. Translation algorithms quickly decoded their languages, revealing the expected panic and confusion. "They're mobilizing their military forces," reported the communications officer. "Nuclear weapons are being moved to strategic positions. Several nations are attempting to contact us directly." "Ignore the communications," Zexithera ordered. "Let them see the futility first. We'll accept their surrender after they understand our power." The first wave of hegemony ships entered Earth's atmosphere over major cities. Massive shadows fell across New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other population centers. The ships hovered silently, their presence alone meant to inspire awe and terror. Zexithera watched the planetary surveillance feeds with satisfaction. Humans fled through streets, their primitive vehicles creating traffic jams as they attempted to escape the cities. Military units surrounded the hovering ships but maintained their distance, clearly overwhelmed by the alien technology. "Standard response," she noted to her staff. "Fear, confusion, and defensive positioning. Their leaders will contact us within the hour requesting terms of surrender." But something unexpected began to happen. Instead of immediate capitulation, the humans started to organize. Military forces didn't retreat but rather established perimeters around the alien ships. Civilians didn't remain in panic, but began evacuating in surprisingly orderly fashion. Most puzzling of all, there were no communication attempts from human leadership. "Admiral," the scanning officer reported with confusion in his voice, "the humans are implementing what appears to be a coordinated evacuation plan. They're moving population centers away from our ships, but not in random panic. This seems organized." Zexithera frowned. In 3 centuries of conquest, she had never seen a species respond with such coordination to first contact with obviously superior forces. Most primitive species either immediately sought negotiations or launched desperate, uncoordinated attacks. "Perhaps they're more organized than our intelligence suggested," Commander Velnock observed. "But organization without technology is meaningless. Should we proceed to Phase 2? Before Zexithera could respond, her sensor officer let out a startled chirp. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures across the planet. The humans they're doing something to their infrastructure." The holographic display zoomed in on various locations across Earth's surface. Human military units were systematically destroying bridges, power plants, transportation networks, and communication hubs. But this wasn't the random destruction of a panicking species. It was deliberate, methodical, and comprehensive. "They're dismantling their own civilization," the tactical officer reported in disbelief. Power grids are going dark across entire continents. They're destroying fuel depots, military installations, even civilian infrastructure. Zexathara stared at the display in growing confusion. This was unprecedented in hegemony conquest history. Species fought back or surrendered, but they never systematically destroyed their own infrastructure before an invasion had even begun. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a single transmission from the planet's surface. It's being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously." "Put it through," Zexathara commanded. A human face appeared on the main screen, elderly but determined. Behind him, Zexathara could see what appeared to be some kind of underground facility. "I am Secretary General Harrison of the United Nations," the human said calmly. "We know why you're here. We've seen this pattern before in our galaxy's history, through our deep space observations. You come to conquer, to integrate species into your empire." Zexathara leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. This human spoke with a confidence that seemed inappropriate given the circumstances. "We won't resist you," Harrison continued, "because we can't win a conventional war against your technology. But we also won't surrender our freedom. By the time you receive this message, our evacuation protocols will be complete. You wanted to conquer Earth and enslave humanity? Congratulations. You've won an empty planet." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the inevitable victory in stunned silence. Zexathara stared at the now blank screen, trying to process what she had just heard. "Scanner report," she demanded. "Admiral, human life signs are diminishing rapidly across the planet. They're not dying, they're disappearing. Underground facilities are going dark. Transport ships are launching from hidden locations. It's as if the entire species is just leaving." For the first time in her military career, Admiral Zexathara felt something she had never experienced during a conquest operation: uncertainty. The humans weren't fighting, weren't surrendering, and weren't dying. They were simply gone. "Options?" she asked her staff. Commander Velnok studied his displays with growing concern. "Admiral, if the humans have truly evacuated their planet, we're facing a situation outside all established protocols. We can't integrate a species that isn't there to integrate." Zexathara looked back at the holographic Earth, its cities now dark, its skies empty except for her own ships. She had come to conquer a world and found herself the ruler of nothing at all. 2 weeks into the occupation of empty Earth, the first hegemony ship disappeared. The light cruiser Swift Retribution had been conducting deep scans over the Rocky Mountain region when it simply vanished from all sensor networks. No distress signal, no energy discharge, no debris field. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Admiral Zexathara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "How does a ship just disappear?" "Unknown, Admiral," reported her sensor officer. "All telemetry was normal until 1432 hours, then complete signal loss. No energy readings, no ion trails, nothing." Commander Velnok materialized via hologram from the surface. "Admiral, I've been studying the disappearance site. There are massive cave systems in this region, some extending deep into the planet's crust. If the humans are down there—" "A light cruiser weighs 50,000 tons, Zexathara interrupted. "It doesn't just fall into a cave. Unless it was pulled in," Dr. Kethmarin suggested from his laboratory station. "Admiral, I've been analyzing human technology records. They were far more advanced in certain areas than our initial intelligence suggested, such as engineering, specifically large-scale construction and materials science. They built structures that stood for thousands of years, moved mountains to create their infrastructure, and developed mining techniques that could hollow out massive underground spaces." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Zexathara had been thinking like a traditional conqueror, expecting a conventional enemy. But the humans had redefined the battlefield entirely. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Source unknown." On screen, the same human face from the initial broadcast appeared: Secretary General Harrison, but this time he wasn't in an underground facility. He appeared to be in some kind of mobile command center. "Admiral Zexathara," Harrison said, somehow knowing she was in command, "I hope you're beginning to understand your situation." "You have one of our ships," Zexathara stated flatly. "Return it immediately or face the consequences." Harrison smiled, and Zexathara noticed it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Your ship is safe, Admiral. Its crew is unharmed and being treated according to what you call the hegemony standard for prisoner care. We've studied your protocols extensively. How do you know hegemony protocols? We've been listening to your communications for over 80 years, Harrison replied. We know your military procedures, your political structure, your expansion methods, and your weaknesses. Zexathara felt her mandibles tense. What do you want? Nothing you can give us, Harrison said. We want you to leave our system and never return. Since you won't do that voluntarily, we'll have to encourage you. The transmission ended. Moments later, alerts began flooding the tactical display. 3 more ships reported sensor anomalies. 2 destroyers investigating ocean trenches detected massive movement beneath the seafloor. A dreadnought hovering over the Sahara Desert registered seismic activity that suggested something enormous was moving beneath the sand. Admiral, the sensor officer called out urgently. We're detecting multiple large-scale energy signatures across the planet. They're coming from underground, moving toward our ship positions. Dr. Kethamiran's voice cut through the bridge chatter. Admiral, I'm reading the geological reports. The humans didn't just go underground. They've been preparing the planet itself as a weapon. Explain. Earth's crust is honeycombed with their construction projects. They've essentially turned their planet into a massive trap. They can move freely through underground networks while we're exposed on the surface and in low orbit. Commander Velnok's hologram flickered as his surface team encountered new developments. Admiral, we're detecting artificial modifications to natural cave systems across every continent. The humans have created a global underground transportation network. They can move personnel and equipment anywhere on the planet without us detecting them. The tactical display updated with new information. Red markers indicated hegemony ships experiencing unusual sensor readings. Yellow markers showed confirmed underground activity. The pattern that emerged was staggering. A planet-wide network of hidden infrastructure that put many hegemony worlds to shame. Sir, the communications officer announced, incoming transmission from the destroyer crushing Victory. Captain Mordith's image appeared, his usual confidence replaced by obvious concern. Admiral, my ship is experiencing systematic equipment failures. Our main engines have gone offline. Weapon systems are not responding and life support is fluctuating. What's your status, Captain? Unknown, sir. We haven't taken any damage, but somehow our systems are being affected by something. Our engineers report that key components are simply disappearing. Zexathara frowned. Disappearing? Yes, sir. Critical parts are being removed from our systems, but we can't detect how. It's as if invisible hands are systematically dismantling my ship. The transmission cut to static. Moments later, the crushing Victory disappeared from all sensor networks, just like the first ship. Admiral, Dr. Kethamiran called from his laboratory. I think I understand what's happening. The humans haven't just hidden underground, they've developed technology we didn't anticipate. What kind of technology? Stealth systems, advanced materials, probably some form of personal cloaking devices. They're not just hiding in caves, Admiral. They're moving among us invisibly. The implications hit Zexathara like a cascade failure. The humans weren't hiding from the hegemony fleet, they were hunting it. Individual humans or small teams were somehow boarding hegemony ships, sabotaging systems and capturing entire crews without being detected. How is this possible? She demanded. Our security systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. Because they're designed to detect known threats, Dr. Kethamiran explained. The humans have developed countermeasures specifically for our technology. They've spent decades studying us, Admiral. They know exactly how our sensors work, what our security protocols are, and how to defeat them. Commander Velnok's image reappeared, his expression grim. Admiral, we've made another discovery. The humans didn't just evacuate their surface population. They've been relocating selected individuals underground for generations. This isn't a recent plan, it's a multi-generational project. What do you mean? We found evidence of families that have been living in underground facilities for decades. Children born and raised in hidden installations. Scientists and engineers who have spent their entire careers developing anti-hegemony technology. Admiral, they've been breeding a generation of humans specifically trained to fight us. Zexathara absorbed this information with growing dread. The hegemony had encountered resistance before, but never anything this sophisticated. The humans had turned their entire planet into a military installation designed to defeat an enemy they had never officially met. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, We're now showing 17 ships with various system malfunctions. 4 more have gone completely dark. Whatever the humans are doing, they're doing it faster. Zexithera studied the tactical display. Her massive fleet was being systematically neutralized by an enemy she couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't fight using conventional methods. Options? She asked her staff. We could withdraw to a safe distance and bombard the planet from orbit, suggested the weapons officer. Absolutely not, Zexithera replied. Our orders are to capture the planet intact, not destroy it. Besides, orbital bombardment won't reach underground installations. Then we're fighting a war with an enemy that has every advantage, Commander Velnok observed. They know the terrain, they know our capabilities, and they're invisible. For the first time in her military career, Admiral Zexithera began to consider the possibility that the hegemony might not win this conquest. The humans had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had made themselves unconquerable not through superior technology, but through superior preparation and tactics. The situation deteriorated rapidly over the following days. Admiral Zexithera watched helplessly as her fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy that remained completely invisible. Ships reported equipment failures at an alarming rate. Critical components vanished from sealed compartments. Navigation systems were reprogrammed with false coordinates. Worse yet, crew members began disappearing during routine duties, only to reappear hours later with no memory of what had happened to them. Admiral, Dr. Kethamiran reported during the morning briefing, I've analyzed the pattern of system failures across the fleet. The humans aren't randomly sabotaging our ships. They're studying them. Studying them for what purpose? They're learning how our technology works. Each ship they disable teaches them more about hegemony engineering. They're reverse engineering our entire technological base while we sit here helpless. Commander Velnok's hologram appeared from the surface, where his ground teams continued their fruitless search for human settlements. Admiral, we've made contact with one of the missing crew members, Lieutenant Zarkek from the destroyer Iron Fist. Put him through. The young officer's image materialized, but something was wrong. His usual military bearing had been replaced by an oddly relaxed demeanor, and his eyes held a strange quality that Zexithera couldn't identify. Admiral, Lieutenant Zarkek said, I've been educated about the human situation. They want me to deliver a message. What did they do to you, Lieutenant? Nothing harmful, sir. They simply showed me things about their history, their capabilities, their plans. Admiral, we need to leave this system immediately. Zexithera leaned forward. Explain. The humans have been preparing for galactic contact for over 2 centuries. Not just for us specifically, but for any hostile extraterrestrial force. Their entire civilization has been reorganized around the principle of unconquerable resistance. That's impossible. Our intelligence reports showed a primitive, divided species. That's what they wanted you to see, Zarkek said quietly. Admiral, the surface civilization we observed was just a facade. The real human society has been underground for generations. They've developed technology that in some areas exceeds our own capabilities. Dr. Kethamiran interrupted the communication. Admiral, the lieutenant's biosigns are unusual. He's showing neural patterns consistent with advanced memory modification techniques. They didn't brainwash me, Zarkek said, apparently hearing the conversation. They educated me. Admiral, please listen carefully. The humans have captured 43 of our ships intact. They've taken over 8,000 crew members prisoner, but they haven't harmed anyone. They're treating us according to our own hegemony standards for prisoner care. What do they want? For us to leave. That's all they've ever wanted. They don't want to conquer the galaxy or destroy the hegemony. They just want to be left alone. That's not how the galaxy works, Zexithera replied. Species either join the hegemony or are integrated by force. There are no exceptions. Zarkek's expression became sad. That's exactly what they expected you to say. Admiral, the humans have studied over 300 hegemony conquests. They know our methods better than we do. They've prepared countermeasures for every strategy we might use. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Zexithera stared at the tactical display, where red markers indicated 43 missing ships and thousands of missing crew members. Admiral, the communications officer announced. Incoming transmission from Hegemony Command. Supreme Commander Withgash appeared on the main screen, his expression thunderous. Admiral, your latest reports are unacceptable. How have you lost nearly 40 ships to a primitive species? Supreme Commander, the humans are far from primitive. They've been preparing for this confrontation for centuries. I don't care how long they've been preparing. You have the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Use it. Sir, our conventional tactics are ineffective. The humans have turned their entire planet into a defensive installation. They can move freely while we're exposed and vulnerable. Then adapt your tactics, Admiral. I'm sending reinforcements. Fleet Admiral Korthmex will arrive with the Second Fleet in 72 hours. Between your forces and his, you should have more than enough firepower to deal with these humans. Additional ships won't solve the problem, sir. The humans are targeting our technology itself. More ships just give them more targets to study and capture. Are you suggesting that the hegemony cannot defeat a single primitive planet? Zexthara chose her words carefully. I'm suggesting that the humans have redefined the nature of the conflict. They're not fighting us the way other species have fought us. Then learn to fight the way they fight. Yithgash snarled before ending the transmission. Easy to say, impossible to implement. How do you fight an enemy you can't see? On terrain they know better than you do, using tactics they've spent centuries perfecting. Admiral, Dr. Kethmiran called from his station. I've been analyzing the captured crew member debriefings. The humans have shown them something that's changed their perspective on this conflict. What kind of something? Historical records, apparently. Evidence of previous hegemony conquests from the perspective of the conquered species. Admiral, the humans have been documenting our expansion for decades. They know what happens to civilizations that are integrated into the hegemony. Zexthara felt a cold realization forming. They know about the cultural assimilation protocols. More than that, they know about the resource extraction programs, the population redistribution policies, and the technological suppression mandates. They know exactly what integration into the hegemony means for their species. The cultural assimilation protocols were classified information, known only to high-ranking hegemony officials. The fact that humans had discovered these policies explained their extreme response to first contact. Admiral, Commander Velnok reported from the surface. We've detected massive movement in the underground networks. It appears the humans are repositioning for something big. Any idea what? Unknown, but the scale is enormous. Whatever they're planning, it involves their entire hidden civilization. Zexthara made a decision that went against everything in her military training. Recall all surface teams. Pull back all ships to minimum safe distance. We're going to try a different approach. Admiral, Commander Velnok questioned. We're going to talk to them. Really talk to them. Not as conquerors to conquered, but as equals. Dr. Kethmiran looked up from his console in surprise. Admiral, that's completely outside hegemony protocols. Hegemony protocols aren't working, Zexthara replied. These humans have shown us that they can capture our ships, study our technology, and apparently educate our crew members about classified hegemony policies. They've demonstrated capabilities we didn't know they possessed. The Supreme Commander won't approve of negotiations with a non-integrated species. Then we won't tell him, until after we see what the humans have to say. Worst case scenario, we learn more about their capabilities. Best case scenario, we find a solution that doesn't involve losing the entire fleet. As her orders were transmitted throughout the fleet, Zexthara couldn't help but wonder if she was making the right decision. But one thing had become clear. The humans had changed the rules of galactic conquest. The question now was whether the hegemony could adapt to those new rules before it was too late. Admiral, the communications officer announced. Incoming transmission from the planet's surface. It's the human leader again. On screen, Secretary General Harrison appeared, but this time his expression was different. He looked tired but determined, like someone who had been preparing for a conversation he didn't want to have. Admiral Zexthara, Harrison said. I understand you want to talk. We're willing to listen, but first you need to understand something important about humanity. What's that? Harrison's expression grew grave. We don't negotiate with kidnappers, and we don't surrender to bullies. If you want a real conversation, you're going to have to treat us like equals, not like another conquest. The meeting took place in what the humans called a neutral zone, a vast underground cavern that stretched for kilometers beneath the former city of Geneva. Admiral Zexthara had never seen anything like it. A subterranean space large enough to house entire fleets, filled with advanced technology that seamlessly blended human engineering with systems she didn't recognize. Zexthara descended into the cavern with a small diplomatic party, including Dr. Kethmiran and Commander Velnok. The humans had insisted that all, Participants arrive unarmed and undergo what they called good faith protocols. What surprised her most was that the humans had provided detailed scans proving their own forces were equally unarmed. Secretary General Harrison waited at the center of the vast space, standing beside a conference table that appeared to be carved from a single piece of stone. Around him stood representatives from various human nations. But Zexthara noticed something significant. Several of the humans wore clothing and equipment that suggested they had never lived on the surface. "Admiral," Harrison said as she approached, "thank you for agreeing to meet under these terms." "Your cavern is impressive," Zexthara replied, studying the soaring ceiling supported by what appeared to be both natural rock formations and advanced engineering. "How long did this take to construct?" 80 years for this facility specifically," replied a woman. Harrison introduced as Director Chen. "But we've been building underground infrastructure for over 2 centuries. Dr. Kethamiran stepped forward. "With respect, your species only achieved industrial technology within the last few centuries. How could you have been building advanced underground facilities for 200 years? Director Chen smiled. "Because we've been receiving help." The revelation hit Zexthara like a physical blow. "Help from whom?" "Species that escaped hegemony conquest," Harrison replied calmly. "Refugees from your expansion. Survivors who managed to flee before integration could be completed." A new figure emerged from the shadows, tall and ethereal with the distinctive crystalline features of the Veltar species. Zexthara's mandibles clicked in shock. The Veltar had been integrated into the hegemony over 50 years ago. "Greetings, Admiral," the Veltar said in perfect hegemony standard. "I am Christel, former science director of the Veltar Confederation. I've been working with the humans for 37 years. "That's impossible," Commander Velnock interjected. The Veltar integration was complete. "Your entire species accepted hegemony membership." Christel's crystalline features shifted in what Zexthara recognized as Veltar expression of bitter amusement. "Is that what your records show? That we accepted integration willingly?" Dr. Kethamiran stepped closer, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. "You're supposed to be extinct as an independent culture. The hegemony reports indicate successful cultural assimilation." "The hegemony sees what it wants to see," Christel replied. "What you call integration, we call cultural genocide. What you call assimilation, we call the systematic destruction of everything that made us who we were." Harrison gestured for everyone to sit at the stone table. "Admiral, we invited you here because we want you to understand what you're really doing when you integrate species into the hegemony. The hegemony brings peace, prosperity, and technological advancement to primitive worlds," Zexthara stated, reciting the standard doctrine. "Does it?" asked another voice. A figure approached the table, this one bearing the scaled features of the Zorth people. "I am Commander Thekna of the former Zorth Republic. Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about Zorth culture?" Zexthara searched her memory. "The Zorth were integrated 43 years ago. They were a warrior culture that was successfully redirected toward productive hegemony service. We were artists," Thekna said quietly. "Our entire civilization was built around the creation of beauty. We had no military, no weapons, no capacity for violence. When your ships arrived, we welcomed you because we thought you had come to share in our artistic achievements. The records indicate Zorth resistance required military pacification. The resistance was our refusal to stop creating art in our traditional forms. Your cultural assimilation protocols declared our artistic expression incompatible with hegemony standards. When we refused to abandon our life's work, your forces classified us as hostile." Zexthara felt uncomfortable. These accounts didn't match any of the briefings she had received about integrated species. Harrison activated a holographic display that filled the air above the table. "Admiral, we've spent decades documenting what really happens during hegemony integration. We've interviewed refugees from over 40 different species. Would you like to see the pattern?" The hologram showed planet after planet, species after species, all following the same progression. First contact, overwhelming force, demands for surrender, then systematic elimination of native culture, redistribution of populations, and replacement of local technology with hegemony standards. "This is propaganda," Commander Velnock protested. "Is it?" Christel asked. "Admiral, do you know what happened to Veltar children after integration?" Zexthara remained silent. They were removed from their families and placed in hegemony education centers, where they were taught that their parents' beliefs were primitive and wrong. Within one generation, no Veltar child could speak our native language or understand our cultural practices. That's standard integration protocol, Zexthara said defensively. Young minds adapt more easily to hegemony standards. You mean young minds are easier to brainwash? Director Chen said bluntly. Admiral, what you call integration, we call conquest followed by cultural murder. The holographic display changed to show current hegemony worlds. Statistics appeared showing population distributions, technological adoption rates, and cultural retention indices. Every species the hegemony has integrated has lost between 80 and 90% of its original culture within 50 years, Harrison explained. Languages disappear, religions are suppressed, art forms are abandoned, and traditional knowledge is classified as primitive and dangerous. Dr. Kethmaran studied the data with growing concern. These statistics, where did you obtain this information? From hegemony databases, replied a new voice. This speaker appeared human but wore technology that Zexthara didn't recognize. I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, formerly of the Human Resistance Intelligence Division. We've been infiltrating hegemony information networks for decades. That's impossible, Zexthara stated. Hegemony security is impenetrable. Not if you understand how the system works from the inside, Christelle explained. The refugees who escaped integration brought knowledge of hegemony technology and protocols. We've taught the humans everything we know. Harrison leaned forward. Admiral, humanity has had access to hegemony intelligence for over 60 years. We know about the resource extraction programs that strip planets of their natural wealth. We know about the population control mandates that limit how many children integrated species can have. We know about the technological suppression directives that prevent conquered species from developing independent technology. The weight of these revelations settled on Zexthara like a heavy atmosphere. Everything she had believed about the hegemony's benevolent expansion was being systematically dismantled. Even if these allegations are true, she said carefully, the hegemony brings stability to the galaxy. Without central authority, species fight among themselves. Do they? Thekna asked. Admiral, before hegemony expansion began, how many interstellar wars were there? The historical records show constant conflict. Whose historical records? Harrison asked. Admiral, we've had access to independent historical databases from refugee species. The galaxy was largely peaceful before the hegemony began its expansion. Most conflicts were internal civil wars, not interstellar aggression. Dr. Kethmiran looked troubled. Admiral, if these claims are accurate, it would mean that everything we've been told about pre-hegemony galactic history is false. Not false, Christelle corrected. Rewritten. The hegemony doesn't just conquer worlds, Admiral. It conquers truth itself. History is edited to support the narrative that hegemony expansion is necessary and beneficial. Commander Velnok stood abruptly. This is enemy propaganda designed to undermine hegemony authority. Admiral, we should end this meeting and return to military operations. Sit down, Commander, Zexthara ordered quietly. I want to hear more. Harrison activated another holographic display. Admiral, let me show you something that might interest you. This is a recording of a Hegemony Council session from 18 months ago. The hologram showed the sacred chambers of the Hegemony High Council, with Supreme Commander Withgash addressing the assembled leadership. The human world represents a significant challenge. Withgash's image said, Intelligence indicates they possess resources that could supply our expansion for the next century. However, their population density and technological distribution suggest that standard integration protocols may not be sufficient. Another council member spoke. What do you recommend, Supreme Commander? If necessary, we implement Protocol Omega, complete population replacement with more manageable species. Admiral Zexthara returned to the inevitable victory in a state of profound confusion. The evidence presented by the humans and their refugee allies had shaken her understanding of everything she had devoted her life to defending. But duty required her to report to Supreme Commander Withgash, regardless of her personal doubts. Supreme Commander, she began the transmission, I have completed initial negotiations with the human leadership. Withgash's image filled the screen, his expression already showing displeasure. Negotiations? Admiral, your orders were to pacify and integrate, not negotiate. Sir, the situation is more complex than our intelligence indicated. The humans have capabilities we didn't anticipate, and they've made claims about hegemony policies that require investigation. What kind of claims? Zexthara chose her words carefully. They allege that integration protocols involve systematic cultural destruction. They claim to have documentation of hegemony practices that contradict official policy statements. Yithgash's eyes narrowed dangerously. Admiral, are you questioning hegemony authority based on enemy propaganda? I'm questioning whether our intelligence about this species is accurate, sir. They've demonstrated technological capabilities that suggest they're far more advanced than reported. How advanced? They've captured 47 of our ships and over 9,000 crew members without inflicting casualties. They've demonstrated the ability to move freely through areas under our control without detection, and they claim to have been monitoring our communications for decades. The silence stretched longer than normal hyperspace transmission delays should allow. When Yithgash finally responded, his voice carried a tone Zexthara had never heard before. Admiral, you will cease all communication with the humans immediately. Fleet Admiral Korthmex has been redirected to your position with authorization to implement Protocol Omega, if necessary. Sir, Protocol Omega is genocide. These beings have shown remarkable restraint despite their capabilities. They've treated our captured personnel according to our own standards. Protocol Omega is final solution to integration resistance, Yithgash corrected. It has been approved by the High Council. The human species has been classified as incompatible with hegemony civilization. The transmission ended, leaving Zexthara staring at a blank screen. Protocol Omega meant the complete extermination of the human species and the repopulation of Earth with a more manageable species. It was the hegemony's ultimate solution for worlds that couldn't be integrated through conventional means. Admiral, Commander Velnok had returned to the ship and was studying her expression with concern. The Supreme Commander has authorized Protocol Omega for the human species. Dr. Kethmiran looked up from his research station in shock. Admiral, that's complete planetary sterilization. It would eliminate not just the humans, but all life on Earth. I'm aware of what Protocol Omega involves, Doctor. Commander Velnok activated the tactical display. Admiral, Fleet Admiral Korthmex will arrive with the Second Fleet in 36 hours. His ships are equipped with planetary sterilization weapons. Zexthara stared at the blue-green planet below. Somewhere beneath its surface, billions of beings who had shown remarkable ingenuity and restraint were about to be exterminated simply because they refused to surrender their independence. Admiral, Dr. Kethmiran said quietly, I've been analyzing the data the humans provided during the meeting. Their claims about integrated species and cultural destruction. The evidence is compelling. Explain. The statistical analysis of population distributions on integrated worlds shows patterns consistent with forced relocation. The cultural retention indices are exactly what you'd expect if traditional practices were being systematically suppressed, and the technological development patterns suggest deliberate limitation of indigenous advancement. Commander Velnok joined the discussion. Doctor, those are standard integration procedures designed to ensure peaceful assimilation. Or they're evidence of cultural genocide, Dr. Kethmiran replied. Commander, I've spent my career studying alien civilizations. The patterns the humans documented are consistent with systematic destruction of native cultures. Zexthara felt the weight of command in a way she never had before. She had spent her entire military career believing she was bringing peace and prosperity to primitive worlds. The possibility that she had actually been participating in genocide was almost too much to process. Admiral, the communications officer announced, incoming transmission from the planet's surface. Secretary General Harrison appeared on the screen, but his expression was grim. Admiral, our monitoring stations have detected the approach of additional hegemony vessels equipped with planetary bombardment weapons. How do you know what weapons they carry? Because we've seen them used before, Harrison replied. Admiral, 43 species have been completely exterminated by the hegemony when integration proved impossible. We have survivors from some of those genocides. That's impossible. The hegemony doesn't engage in genocide, doesn't it? A new figure appeared beside Harrison, this one bearing features Zexthara didn't recognize. I am Wise Singer Klendar, the last surviving member of the Harmony Collective. Our species was eliminated by hegemony forces 70 years ago, because our neural interconnectedness was deemed incompatible with individual loyalty to the hegemony. Zexthara felt her exoskeleton go cold. She remembered reading about the Harmony Collective in historical records. They had been listed as a species that had evolved beyond physical existence. Your species transcended to energy beings, she said. No, Klendar replied sadly. My species was murdered. Every last one of them except for me and a few others who managed to escape. What you call transcendence was actually sterilization weapons turning my people's bodies to energy. I've spent 70 years living with the knowledge that I'm the only one left who remembers our songs. Harrison activated a holographic display showing a fleet of massive hegemony ships approaching Earth's outer system. Admiral, those are the same class of vessels that sterilized the Harmony Collective, the Zorth Republic, and dozens of other species. We know what they're coming to do. Then surrender, Zexithera said desperately. Accept integration. Your species doesn't have to die. Yes, it does, Harrison replied. Admiral, integration for humanity isn't possible. We know too much about hegemony methods. We've documented too many atrocities. We've provided sanctuary for too many refugees. The hegemony can't allow us to exist because we represent proof of their crimes. Dr. Kethmiran stepped forward. Admiral, if Protocol Omega is implemented, it won't just be genocide. It will be the destruction of evidence. Everything the humans have gathered about hegemony practices will be eliminated. Zexithera understood the full scope of the situation now. The humans hadn't just refused integration. They had become living proof that the hegemony's expansion was built on systematic cultural destruction and genocide. Their very existence threatened the carefully constructed narrative that justified hegemony expansion. What do you want from me? She asked Harrison. We want you to remember this conversation, Harrison replied. When the sterilization begins, when you watch an entire species die for the crime of wanting to remain free, we want you to remember that we offered to share our knowledge with you. We offered to show you the truth about what the hegemony really is, and then you'll have to decide whether you can live with being part of a genocide machine, or whether you'll join us in trying to stop it. Commander Velnok stepped forward angrily. Admiral, this is treason. They're asking you to betray the hegemony. No, Zexithera said quietly, understanding flooding through her. They're asking me to remember what the hegemony was supposed to represent before it became what it is now. Harrison's expression grew sad. Admiral, we know about the original hegemony charter. We know it was founded to protect smaller species from larger predators. Somewhere along the way, it became the predator itself. The transmission ended, leaving Zexithera facing the most important decision of her life. In 36 hours, Fleet Admiral Korthmex would arrive with the firepower to exterminate every living thing on Earth. She could follow orders and participate in genocide, or she could find a way to honor the original principles the hegemony was supposed to defend. Admiral, Commander Velnok was waiting for orders. Prepare all ships for combat, she said finally. Against the humans, sir. Zexithera looked at the blue-green planet below, knowing that billions of beings were preparing to die rather than surrender their freedom. Against anyone who threatens this world, she replied. Fleet Admiral Korthmex arrived at the Sol system with the most destructive force ever assembled by the hegemony. 200 ships of the line, each capable of sterilizing continents, formed a battle formation that stretched across the outer system. His flagship, the massive dreadnought Final Authority, was equipped with weapons that could crack planets. Admiral Zexithera watched the approaching fleet on her tactical display, knowing that in a few hours, she would either be dead or branded a traitor to everything she had once believed in. Admiral, Commander Velnok said urgently, Fleet Admiral Korthmex is hailing us. You have to respond. Put him through. Korthmex's scarred face filled the screen, his expression showing barely contained fury. Admiral Zexithera, you will explain why your fleet is positioned between my ships and the target planet. I'm protecting Earth from unnecessary destruction, Zexithera replied calmly. Earth is scheduled for complete sterilization under Protocol Omega. Remove your ships from my firing solution. Immediately. I refuse. The Bridge of the Inevitable Victory fell silent. In the entire history of the hegemony, no admiral had ever refused a direct order from a fleet admiral during a Protocol Omega operation. Admiral, Korthmex said dangerously, you are in violation of direct orders from the High Council. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The consequences of defending innocent beings against genocide. I accept those consequences. Innocent? Korthmex laughed harshly. These humans have corrupted you with their propaganda. They've captured your ships, stolen your technology, and turned you against your own species. They've shown me the truth about what we've become, Zexathera replied. Admiral, do you know what the original Hegemony Charter says about protecting smaller species? The charter is obsolete. The galaxy has changed. No, we've changed. We've become the thing we were created to stop. Dr. Kethamaran stepped forward. Fleet Admiral, I've analyzed the evidence provided by the humans about hegemony integration practices. The data strongly suggests that our expansion has resulted in systematic cultural genocide. Doctor, Korthmek snarled, you've been compromised by enemy psychological warfare. When this operation is complete, you'll undergo memory adjustment to remove the contamination. The threat of memory adjustment, the hegemony's method of erasing inconvenient thoughts and replacing them with approved thinking, sent a chill through the bridge crew. Admiral Zexathera, Korthmex continued, you have 10 minutes to move your ships. After that, I'll consider you an enemy of the hegemony and act accordingly. The transmission ended. Zexathera looked around her bridge, seeing her crew's faces reflecting her own uncertainty. She was asking them to commit treason against the only authority they had ever known. Admiral, her tactical officer said quietly, the Fleet Admiral's ships are powering weapons. They're targeting both us and the planet. Sir, Commander Velnok said, we have families on hegemony worlds. If we do this, they'll be branded as traitors' families. They could face exile or worse. Zexathera understood the magnitude of what she was asking. Anyone who wants to transfer to a shuttle and join Fleet Admiral Korthmex's forces has my permission. I won't order anyone to commit treason against their conscience. To her surprise, no one moved. Sir, her weapons officer said, if we're going to fight the hegemony, we'll need allies. Open a channel to the planet's surface. Secretary General Harrison appeared on the screen, but this time he wasn't alone. Representatives from dozens of species stood behind him. Refugees from hegemony conquest who had found sanctuary with humanity. Admiral, Harrison said, we've been monitoring the hegemony communications. We know what's coming. Can you fight them? We've been preparing for this moment for 70 years, replied Christel, the Veltar scientist. Every species the hegemony destroyed contributed knowledge to our defense preparations. What kind of preparations? The holographic display changed to show a massive space battle. But this wasn't a simulation. It was happening in real time around Jupiter. Ships that looked like no technology Zexathera had ever seen were engaging hegemony scouts. How is this possible? She breathed. Refugee species have been building ships in your outer system for decades, Harrison explained. Hidden in asteroid fields, camouflaged as natural phenomena, protected by technology the hegemony never learned to detect. Wise Singer Klendar stepped forward. Admiral, every species that escaped hegemony genocide brought knowledge. Combined with human ingenuity and manufacturing capability, we've built a fleet. Admiral, her sensor officer called out urgently. Massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. Unknown ships are decloaking around every planet. The tactical display lit up with hundreds of new contacts. Ships bearing the design characteristics of dozens of different species, all emerging from hiding places where they had remained undetected for decades. Fleet Admiral Korthmex's voice cut through the bridge communications. What is this? Where did these ships come from? From species you thought you had destroyed? Zexathera replied. From civilizations you thought you had erased? Impossible. The integrated species don't have the capability to build independent fleets. The integrated species don't, Harrison said, his voice now broadcasting on all frequencies. But the survivors do, and we've been waiting for you. The battle began without formal declaration. Korthmex's ships designed to destroy planets found themselves facing an enemy unlike anything in hegemony experience. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space. Weapons that disrupted hegemony shields using principles based on technologies from extinct civilizations. Tactics that combined the knowledge of hundreds of conquered species. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the refugee fleet is using coordinated attack patterns based on every successful resistance action against hegemony forces in the last century. Zexathera made her choice. All ships target Fleet Admiral Korthmex's formation. Protect the refugee fleet. Her ships joined the battle, and for the first time in galactic history, hegemony forces found themselves outmatched not by superior technology, but by superior knowledge and tactics. The battle raged for hours. Fleet Admiral Korthmex's powerful fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move, counter every strategy, and exploit every weakness. "Admiral," Commander Velnock reported, "Korthmex's flagship is requesting surrender terms. Put him through." The fleet admiral's image appeared, his bridge showing the damage from multiple hits. "Admiral Zexathara, you've doomed the hegemony to chaos. Without central authority, the galaxy will tear itself apart." "No," Zexathara replied. "We've given the galaxy a chance to heal from what the hegemony has done to it." Harrison's voice joined the conversation. "Fleet Admiral, we're not interested in conquering the hegemony. We're interested in reforming it. The original charter spoke of protection and cooperation, not domination and cultural destruction. The High Council will never accept reformation. Then the High Council will be replaced," Zexathara said firmly. "Admiral, every ship in your fleet is being offered the same choice I made. Join us in returning the hegemony to its founding principles or be left behind by history." One by one, ships in Korthmex's fleet began changing their transponder codes, joining the growing coalition of hegemony forces who had chosen reformation over genocide. "This is impossible," Korthmex whispered. "No," said Wise-Singer Klendar, his voice carrying the weight of 70 years of loss. "This is justice." As the battle ended and surrender negotiations began, Zexathara looked down at Earth, still blue and green and alive. Humanity had done something no other species had accomplished. They hadn't just survived hegemony conquest, they had transformed it into an opportunity for galactic liberation. The humans had been right about one thing. Conquering Earth had seemed simple, but the hegemony had never planned on the humans being gone, vanished into an underground resistance that had spent centuries preparing for this moment. They had never anticipated that their conquest would become their own transformation. In trying to destroy humanity, the hegemony had discovered its own conscience, and the galaxy would never be the same.